welcome to Business Unusual. This is where we talk matters kingdom business. And we've been looking at how to thrive in and post-COVID-19 crisis. We've talked about the businesses that are successfully begun and continue to thrive after a pandemic, a war, or a financial crisis. We've looked at the pandemic, we've looked at the war. Now we want to look at businesses that thrive in and after an economic or financial recession. My name is Susan Opio.
And my name is Charles Opio.
And of course, we continue talking about businesses that are successful or are birthed.
Yeah.
Because we are looking at how to birth ourselves out of this crisis and continue growing.
Absolutely. And why this is so crucial with our discussion on Business Unusual is because for some strange reason, I don't know why people always assume that business has just been business and as usual. Not realizing that most of the big companies we thrive in today were actually born, like you've said, within one of these. And we've said before that COVID acts like all three. COVID creates an environment as if we've been at war. That's the kind of impact we are feeling. As if we had a recession. As if the whole pandemic, it's working. Now, out of that, we've looked at a number of issues that you've said. Now, I want to look at economic recessions. Economic recessions are very interesting, and as usual, we select certain organizations that we feel would give diversity to this particular series. It's not so much that they're the only ones, but as diverse as we get, the wider the picture you get. In terms of all sectors are affected. So one of the first companies I want to speak about is a company most people would not associate with a recession, and that is Disney.
So when you talk about Disney, we always think about this company, but you don't know the history behind it. And we've been looking at history behind companies here. Now tell us about Disney.
Disney was actually created by Walt in 1929. You know, most people would think that Disney is a company that came in the last 15 or so years. It's a 1929, you can imagine. And the interesting thing, Disney was within the context, it's one of the unique ones, it was launched during a recession, not post. During. In fact, this was a financial recession. That's when you don't invest. That's when you don't start companies. That's when you're told to be cautious. There was actually a 4-year recession. And now listen to this. The reason Walt Disney began Disney, him and his partner, this was the argument, that in the middle of such, it was called the Great Depression. That's actually, it was so bad, it was known as the Great Depression. Not nowadays, for us, depression.
Majority of the population were depressed.
Exactly. We always think of depression as something somebody suffers. Imagine when the entire nation is going through depression. The economy is bad, nothing is working, factories are closing, business. In that same window, we say, let's do this. And the logic was simple. Things are so bad, Americans need something to smile about.
We need something. It's like you're boosting these people.
Exactly.
Now, one individual, let's say him and his partners, coming to that place of saying, you need a nation to smile again.
Exactly.
We've been in this depression. We need something to get them out.
There you go.
But what we are noticing also, he did this during
the depression. And he begins with a cartoon. Animations. Can you imagine that's the resolution to you in a depression? That's why we picked Disney. Is not everything is usually business. This also entertainment is a requirement in a crisis. People's mental health is a requirement in a crisis. So it begins with what would be assumed is for children. Today, Disney is one of the largest entertainment franchises in the world.
When you talk of Disney, who doesn't know Disney? But I like what you're saying, that even though it's entertainment, which today we think it's for children, basically, we are saying that this one was for the nation. This is a guy who said that we need this nation to smile again. And the only way we can do that is let's go cartoon way. Now, right now, why I'm saying this is because we're in COVID-19 right now. Who would think that we have the first liners? We have the patients. We have the families that have been affected. Don't you think we need to smile? So sometimes people have to think, don't keep thinking about what can we do for the crisis. Sometimes think of how do we affect people in the crisis. Who have been affected by this crisis.
What are the possibilities? Maybe there's time to write some songs that talk about it shall be better. Anything, something that moves us beyond.
So the artists should not say, we are not having
we have
concerts,
no work.
We don't have platforms for comedy, we don't have, I mean, it's time actually when people require their services.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where they began. By 2019, they said the revenues was $69.6 billion US.
That was 2019.
2019.
Okay.
For Disney. Disney has become so big today, many of the things we think we knew have all actually been bought by Disney. You're talking of Pixar, you're talking of Marvel, you're talking of, all these different franchises, movie franchises. They are now all under Disney.
Okay.
Disney worlds are being built all over the place. People travel globally to see what was a cartoon is now personalities acting as the cartoon. I mean, the changes are immense.
I'll have to check and find out if Disney is repeating their performance. Where we say that this year, they entertained people when everyone was in depression.
Obviously.
What are they doing in 2020?
So one of the things they're already doing in 2020, you may not have paid attention, but because most people in the African region and so on are already aware of Netflix. Okay. Disney Plus is globally competing now with Netflix.
Yes.
Because Netflix generally takes movies from different producers, and we now know what happens. They stream it. But then something is happening with Disney. Disney, because they own the production houses, they've realized that the film industry may not be the same.
Yes.
People may not go back to the cinemas the way they used to.
As it was.
Because that's one of their movie franchises and the entertainment.
Yes.
And as we will be talking in this series, we'll talk about another level in which they are moving into in amusement parks, in quotes, and how that shift is going to be incredible of how Disney is going to diversify.
We talked about repurposing.
Yes.
Where you say here is Disney.
Yes.
They have been entertaining people in the movie theaters,
yes.
in concert halls and all those kinds of places. The question is, now that we might not go back to those places again, it will never be the same.
Exactly.
Now, how do you repurpose after this? And that's what you're talking about.
Yes, so you have to keep watching to see when we get to those solutions. Okay. But let's at least talk about one thing they're doing now. Yes. They're going into live streaming. Moving away from the theater to your house, to your phone.
So remember when we are talking about all this, we are saying, if you hear what Disney is saying, how does it affect you, or how does it motivate you to start something else that maybe might be in line with what they are doing?
Yes.
Because it's not all the time that you must go and start your own line of business. Sometimes you actually hook up, if you may use that statement, hook up with an existing company.
And one powerful thing that is happening, and again we'll still talk about that, is how such large organizations are now beginning to partner with individuals. You see, there's a time when corporates only dealt with corporates. Not anymore. It's shifting so drastically that they have to talk to companies they never used to talk to. They have to start individuals they never would speak to.
Yes.
I mean, now they are looking for who has a small internet service in an African country. How do we stream through them? How do we partner with them? And in the past, they would never have spoken to them.
What I'm hearing with that, and of course, when you talk of Netflix, I'm also hearing of these people who had these facilities, especially out of the city, and people would come to watch maybe soccer or come and watch movies. Now, with social distancing, you might not be waiting for COVID to end.
Exactly.
You should be repurposing now.
In fact, in the past, these mega organizations were wasting so much effort and energy starting to stop piracy. They were annoyed that people were downloading. The reason, by the way, for most of you in Africa, do not know why Netflix came to Africa. Netflix came to Africa because of your piracy. Because what used to happen is you used to download and print DVDs and distribute as major businesses. And when they did their calculation on the downloads, because they can see them, they realized they're not making as much money as they should. So instead of fighting you for piracy and telling you have to buy the high-end DVD and ship it, it will never arrive, they decided, why don't we do something else? Why don't we make it cheap? Give them as many as they want to watch for one fee. That's a switch.
Per month. That's what we're talking about, repurposing.
Simple.
Coming to a place of saying, we already have this. How do we get to the masses in a better way, cheaper for the masses, to avoid, of course, like now, even if you don't come, DVD piracy will continue. So how do we stop that?
So what's going to happen? Even in those places, that's why you find that they allow you, do you notice something funny? They allow you X number of screens, not people.
Okay.
What does that mean? Without them saying it, they are saying, you know what, stop pirating, just get an internet connection, pay for our service, let people come in and watch on demand.
$10 a month?
Yes, they can all select what they want to watch. Yes. We don't care if you put it on a big screen, on a small screen with speakers. We don't care.
Whatever you want to do.
You start your movie theater, streaming Netflix. So you'll wonder why kids in the center of Africa know exactly what's happening globally. Because
repurposing. And that's, of course, we are talking about movie or rather companies that were birthed in a crisis.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about HP.
Exactly. And it's good before we move from here, Netflix's shares shot through the roof because of COVID.
Yes.
Because everybody's at home.
Of course, we are home.
Yes.
We need to watch some. I mean, like you talked about Disney. When you talk about the crisis, the depression, the Great Depression, in this place, COVID, people were home. They need to be entertained.
Yes.
Netflix took that platform.
Absolutely.
It filled the space.
There you go. So that's the power of what can happen within a context. What would have been a small, unknown company, overnight, shifts into something entirely different. And in fact, for some of the multinationals, what was a small idea within their company, see, if you study companies like Google, there's some time last year where they went buying every new startup. You start a small, nice technology company, they buy it. They didn't buy them necessarily because they were sure of what would happen, but they bought it in case anything happens.
They are always looking to the future.
Yeah, what if this changed? Let's buy these companies, we can afford them, because if anything goes on. That's why Zoom shot out. Because in COVID,
in a crisis.
There you go.
Yes.
Zoom became a big deal. So whoever allowed Google to buy Zoom is now smiling all the way to the bank because the value has just shot through the roof. These are the things we're talking about. So while we're talking technology, let's talk about another company that began in the middle of one of the worst recessions. This was the recession of 1937 to 1938. Some people would not imagine this company began then. This was what was known as the worst recession in the 20th century. Historians say that. The world GDP declined by 19%.
The world?
The world GDP. And that is why when HP started. We all know HP today is all across. In terms of business machines, these technologies, that technologies, they came in that window. That was not the time to launch a technology startup. Yet they stepped in.
So in a recession, when people think you should not be launching.
Exactly.
You should actually be looking and asking yourself how to
wait and watch and observe.
Of course, but again, you're asking yourself, do I want to invest now?
Exactly.
HP says this is the time.
Yes.
Do you realize that those companies that emerge in a crisis,
they
must have that pioneering spirit?
Yes.
And maybe talking to the Kingdom Business. Remember, this is Kingdom Business. We are saying that there's no better person to have that pioneering spirit like a son of God.
Exactly.
Where you say that anchoring on God, you're saying, I want to see what is in the heart of God. In this season, God is never locked by a crisis.
Absolutely.
You cannot say there's a crisis, heaven doesn't have ideas.
No. Yeah. And by the way, H and P are the last names of two people, Hewlett and Packard. That's where it came from, and that's the brand today that we look at, and it's massive. It's in every area of technology. 2019 revenue, 58.8 billion US. That was the revenue. Now imagine it started when everything was declining. Right now we are complaining that the world economy may have declined by about 6 or 7%. That was 19%.
Global.
Can you imagine what they did? They stepped into that window.
They still did something.
Exactly.
And I think also we are also talking to that person out there who is sitting and saying, yes, I can hear some idea in my heart. And I'm feeling like this is the wrong time because you are listening to the wrong frequency. The frequency of heaven says, I am not affected by what is happening in the earth. And maybe you need to talk about that.
You see, God never, ever asks us to do something because the environment is right. I normally say, when God asks you to do something, do it because he will make the environment right. It works the other way around.
And God rules over the affairs of men, where we say that God has already seen the end from the beginning. And he tells you that if you can trust him in a crisis like this, the ideas in your heart are not your ideas. It's God's ideas if you are connected to him.
Listen, if you truly hear God's voice, if he tells you to start an ice cream company in the desert, do it. If he tells you to start it in the North Pole, if he tells you go and sell ice cream to Eskimos, go and sell it. Because something is going to happen there that is going to make ice creams important.
But right now it doesn't look like
everything disagrees. Who would think like that? Why is Noah building an ark and there's never been rain? The rain was waiting for the ark.
Trusting God that when he talks, he actually upholds everything by the power of his word.
Yes.
And knowing that that idea he's giving you, he's telling you, be ahead.
Yeah.
Stop following. Be the leader. Be the one who is charting the way.
Yes.
Yes.
So these things happen. Now, we've spoken about technology. Let's get into the hospitality environment. There's a brand that many of us really notice. Maybe it came recently into Africa, but it's been all over the US and Europe for a long time.
Yes.
This is in hospitality. It's called the Hyatt, the Hyatt hotels. What's interesting is that the Hyatt was begun again in the recession of 1958.
Okay.
You notice we're dealing with the recessions and investment. They seem to be like an oxymoron. They don't seem to be agreeing. And in fact, the recession started, and 2 months into the recession, a very interesting guy called Jay Pritzker actually bought a motel. It was just a motel outside the Los Angeles airport.
Okay.
Remember, during these times, who is traveling?
So you take advantage of what is happening at that point.
Exactly.
All right?
And he bought this motel. Yes. People must have thought it was a bad investment.
Of course, it sounded.
Yeah, why are you buying a motel near the airport? We're in a huge recession.
Yes.
Nobody's doing business. Today, they say the Hyatt has over 900 top-class hotels globally.
Not motels.
Not motels.
So from a motel to a hotel.
Yes, to 5 stars. You go any country, there's a Hyatt.
Oh, yes.
Now, think about that. Somebody who looked at this thing and said, let's do this. And we do this deliberately just to give you a picture. From that window to date, we're talking about sales of 2019, 5 billion US dollars.
From a motel.
From a motel.
Looking at, I mean, when you look at taking risks, this is what is called taking risks.
Absolutely.
Meaning, if you want to go in business, we're not talking about enterprises where you're just sitting and saying, I'm trying to do something for me, myself, and I. We are saying that if you want to affect humanity, you must be a person who can take risks.
And one thing that I've discovered as you study some of the biographies of these people, none of them began their business trying to be a billionaire. You see, you notice in this session of the recession, we focused, if you watched the other session, we talked about military and war. Why? Because most of those people benefited from beginning business with government and then they repurposed. Now we are dealing with individuals who took their own risks. And started companies that became so massive that governments depend on their technology.
I like what you just said, that they did not start with the idea of, I want to become a billionaire. The problem we have in this season is where everyone is asking, what is it I can supply in COVID-19 season that will make me a billionaire?
It's not going to happen.
Not bring a solution to the crisis, the current crisis. No. How can we make money in the crisis? That kind of a person
is going to fail.
You cannot thrive.
Because they're not responding to issues that are there. They're trying to take advantage. Now, business is not taking advantage. I know they may have taught you that, but it's a lie.
Yes.
Business is providing solutions.
So when you talk about kingdom business, you're saying that God is about human beings, and God is about bringing solutions that will alleviate the pain of men.
Absolutely.
So when you come and say, wait a minute, here are people, they are sick, here are families that are being affected, schools are being closed, industries are being closed, how do I bring a solution? Your heart is for the people, not for making money.
And that statement fits so perfectly into the next company we're going to discuss, because this is the one most people know. When it comes to technology, everybody will tell you Microsoft.
Yes.
Most people don't know that when Microsoft was formed in 1975, not that long ago, it is said that when Bill Gates was queried why they began Microsoft, what was the idea, what was the vision? It's a very strange vision. They wanted a computer in every home.
It was about people.
That's it. And people said, not happening. Computers are for corporations. Well, why would anybody need a computer in a home? That's what their desire was. Make an affordable computer. So we're going to work on bringing down the costs of making some. That's why they were the first person to have what we think is a title. We think it's the name of a computer, a PC. We think it's the name.
Yes, PC.
No, PC meant personal computer.
So it was their intention that everybody should have their personal.
Exactly. That's where the name, that's where the description PC comes from.
All right.
To us nowadays, we think PC simply means a desktop.
Yes.
No, PC's concept originally, why it was named PC, was to make it that we no longer have to have corporations only owning a computer.
Everybody
but
must own one.
Individuals on a computer.
Notice how most of these people we are talking about all are about people, bringing solutions to people.
Yes.
And when we talk about companies thriving in a crisis and post a crisis, you must be anchored on solution for human beings.
Yes. In fact, if you're to track the origin of Microsoft, they say it officially launched on April 4, 1975, which was literally days after the recession ended. When they announced the recession was over, within a week they began Microsoft.
Yes.
Who knew where things were going next? Nobody. And today, we have more than a personal computer.
Oh, yes.
That journey has ended up with everything being a computer.
So their vision is actually being seen.
Exactly.
They watched it unfold.
Yes.
2020, we are seen, and that's what has helped, even in this crisis.
Yes.
We thank God for Microsoft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Now, if you think that way, you'll realize that because of what Microsoft did,
yes,
because of their mindset, because of their thinking, because of the vision they had in their mind, today, think about it. I know many other companies have come up powerful technology, but you cannot talk about computerization and remove Microsoft from the equation.
You can't.
And it's interesting, as we began speaking about two broadcasts ago, about all the other factors that appear when these shifts happen, you can begin to see those things begin to appear here.
Okay.
Because Microsoft has affected sales, labor.
Okay.
How does labor work because of Microsoft?
Okay.
Because of the processors, because of what they came at. And remember, what is Microsoft? Micro software. You know, we always think they're just names.
They're just names. I mean, sometimes you have to break them down for us to be like, oh, okay, that's what they meant.
Yeah, you mean software can be made smaller to work easier by individuals.
Yes.
Because of that, they changed how business is done.
Oh, yes.
They changed what work looked like.
Yes.
They changed what education looked like.
Because we got courses now that we go into because of Microsoft.
In fact, it is very difficult to discuss the digital age without mentioning Microsoft.
And remember, when you're talking about this, there are schools that came up, there are colleges that came up.
Absolutely.
So we are talking about hearing of what is happening in the crisis, and there are people who will now anchor on existing companies, corporations.
Exactly.
Because when you think of Microsoft, there's somebody who had Microsoft and went and opened a college.
Yes.
Because they could look at this and tell themselves, then that means we need a school that will teach.
We are back to what we discussed before, training, apprenticeship. Everything comes back into the same cycle again, but a new basis has been created for everything to flow out of. In fact, what is crucial is you will now see that post where we are going, why we left Microsoft into this corner and brought it in here, is post any other discussion we will have on this series, you cannot ignore the role that Microsoft plays in everything else now advancing.
And notice that we are saying once in 1975 after the launch, now we are saying look at how they have continued to upgrade. That's a heart of a pioneer.
Exactly.
That is somebody who was not just about becoming billionaire, but having solutions. Meaning, even in this crisis, they are thinking of what do we do next.
Yeah.
We are not coming to an end. We are always thinking of how do we upgrade.
And now, they became so pivotal. Ever so long, something becomes pivotal. Like the reason we spoke about war was dependent on the invention of engines.
Okay.
Once engines were invented, mechanization, factories, engines, war. Now, IT, digital age, Microsoft.
Yes.
Microsoft are the people who brought us into a new world that now affects everything else you've heard of.
Yes.
That gets involved. So even as we continue now in our consideration, this will have to be the basis out of which every other product is now understood.
And that is what we keep saying over and over. What are you hearing?
Yeah.
Are you sitting there wondering what to do in this crisis? Or are you looking at your company and asking, how do I now, using the information you're telling me of Microsoft, I can now go and research further how that will not birth, but tick my mind into coming up with a new thing.
Exactly.
But that works, that's something that works with Microsoft. Something different.
Let's just say, for lack of a better term, computerization, digitization.
Okay.
When we began this series, we used very many big words that had to do with that basis.
Okay.
So from now on, everything has to come off of this reality.
Yes.
Digitization, computerization, analytics, data, information, content. The world is endless.
That is where we are going to.
In fact, literally, let's say Microsoft should be treated like a seed.
Yes.
That birthed something.
It birthed all this.
Exactly.
And that's what we are saying about corporations that are birthed in a crisis. We are in a crisis right now, and the question is, what does COVID-19 mean to you? What do you hear when you hear COVID-19? Do you hear a crisis, or do you hear a solution? Do you hear a birthing moment, that the pain we are going through is also a pain of birthing new things into the world, things that will affect everyone? Now, when we talk about kingdom business, this is what we're talking about. This is business unusual. Keep tracking.